Hey everyone, and welcome to the Future Jobs Podcast. I'm your host Fahad Zafar, and my guest today is Raquel Borras, a speaker, author, podcast host, and advocate for personal growth and leadership. Through her work, Raquel has dedicated herself to empowering individuals, especially younger generations, to embrace resilience, build confidence, and create meaningful lives and careers. She is passionate about helping people move beyond limitations, discover their potential, and take action toward their goals. In a world where many young people are navigating uncertainty, rapid change, and increasing pressure, Raquel brings a perspective that is both practical and inspiring. Today, we will be discussing Gen Z, leadership, confidence, personal growth, the future of work, and what it takes to thrive in a constantly changing world. Raquel, welcome to the Future Jobs Podcast. How have you been?
Thank you for having me. I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
I am super great and super excited for our conversation today because, honestly, I really admire your work for whatever you're doing for Gen Zs, for young generation, and I think this generation has a lot of opportunities, a lot of things. We didn't have AI, for the previous generations. Now we have, but they don't know how to use it, properly. So we're gonna just discuss that. But before we move further into our conversation, I would like to know more about yourself and what really empowered you, your own journey to step into this amazing work.
Well, I'm someone who, as a kid, thought I was going to be a teacher. So I always knew that I wanted to work with kids, and I always felt connected to kids and the youth. And I became a mother at a young age of 25. And so now my kids are now 25 and 22. So they're adults. But being the mother of two kids that are Gen Z, I obviously wanted to better understand their generation. And I myself, at age 20 or so, when I was in college, suffered from depression and had a failed suicide attempt because I didn't feel seen or heard or understood. And I thought I had to be perfect. All of the things that this generation is actually experiencing as well, but on a whole nother level because of social media and AI. And I just feel a very strong connection to this generation and to kids. I don't, there's like an innocence there. And so I just have always gravitated to wanting to be a voice for the youth. And so that's kind of where it brought me to host two podcasts where I speak to the youth. I just finished filming a documentary last summer where I traveled across the US. I traveled across 13 states speaking to Gen Z. I spoke to 30 individuals and just got their perspectives on what is going on in the world and how it's affecting them. And so, yeah, that's where I have now dedicated my time is to the youth, because I know how important it is to pour into them because they're our future. So that has become my purpose.
Exactly. That is super inspiring, and I also got to know about the documentary
I can't hear you. Can you put your microphone up a little bit closer to your? Yeah, there we go.
yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so I was talking about the documentary you were filming, and I also got to know about that through LinkedIn,
Mhm.
and like taking perspectives from different um, corner of the globe, from different teenagers. It's really amazing. And is it out now on YouTube, or people are
Not
able to
yet.
watch?
I'm literally waiting any second to get a text from my filmmakers to say that they've uploaded my, like, it'll be a private link, but I still need to give the green light on the final version. And so I'm waiting to give it a go on that. And then once I do that, there's still a lot of paperwork that needs to be done. And you have to trademark it, you have to register it to the Library of Congress. It's very like there's a process. And then I got to figure out how I'm releasing it. If I'm doing it through YouTube, if I'm waiting for someone to buy it and distribute it on their streaming platform, I that's where I'm trying to figure it out.
Wonderful. That is amazing, and we are so excited for that, the
Yeah.
final version of the documentary. So I also want to talk about that a little bit because we want some exposure here as well from the perspectives you've taken from all those teenagers, from those Gen Zs. So could
Hmm.
you talk a little bit about that trip of yours? Experiencing those teenagers. What was that like?
Yeah, so a lot of the individuals that were in my documentary had already been on my podcast. So a lot of the individuals I had already built a rapport with, and I had already had conversations with them, and so uh, it was me just being able to be face to face with them. Some of them I had never met in person, and it was just important that I already had built a rapport with them because I wanted them to be really open and honest about what they're going through, and that for me was really important, that it was a very genuine and authentic conversation. I didn't want anyone feeling like I was trying to like if I had an agenda or I was trying to promote certain things. I just wanted to be able to share exactly what they're experiencing and do it in a safe space and in a way that they could trust me with their voices. And so the so most of the individuals there, like I said, I knew them, and so I already knew what they could bring to the film. Like I had one individual who has been on my podcast 8 times. I've met them in person 3 times. They had just turned 16, but they're like a child prodigy, so they already are in college. They're on the spectrum, so they have autism, and so like I wanted him to share what it's like to have autism, because I we still live in a country that has still has a lot of things to say about someone who with that diagnosis. And so I wanted to come from someone who's actually experiencing it, and so that's what I wanted, the voice to come from people that are experiencing these things. um, yeah, because sometimes we tend to speak for them, and I didn't want to speak for these Gen Zers. I wanted them to be the ones sharing their stories and their perspectives.
Exactly. Yeah, I've heard about that disease from probably. I also watched some of his videos on Facebook and on YouTube, and personally the podcast you've conducted with him. So what was basically the initial step, or initial thought which came into your mind that inspired you to launch your YouTube channel where you are, interviewing some of those teenagers, and you know, like what is the purpose behind that?
So it was during COVID. I had a pretty large presence on LinkedIn, and I was on a lot of lives like this and podcasts. And I really liked the idea of having conversations with different people, but I wanted to do something different. And clearly, nobody was having conversations with kids, with the youth. So I thought, well, I know uh, you know, have my own kids and their friends, and I know the type of conversations I have with them, and they're very open and honest conversations. And then, you have the pandemic, and so I decided that I wanted to hear what they had to say and what they were going through, because we could hear what the adults were going through, but I wanted to hear from the kids, because they were going through something that was even more detrimental to them than adults, because they're young, their childhood is so important, and they're being taken from schools and have to be at home and from their friends. So for me, I knew that there was eventually we were going to see what was going to happen from isolating these kids. So I kind of, in a way, wanted to get their perspective in the moment. And then what's really cool is that then here I do the documentary 6 years later, and I get to hear how it's affected them 6 years later. So as I'm like actually sharing this with you, I just I realized that like when I was talking to these kids, none of these kids or people were going to know how it was actually going to affect them in the long run. And so now I'm getting to actually see that. So that's kind of cool now that I think about it. Because, like I said, in the moment, I didn't know. Nobody knew.
Exactly, exactly. You're very right. So when you look at Gen Z today, what gives you the most hope?
Um, you know, I think what gives me the most hope is that they still have hope. They still want to be able to change the world, make a difference, make a positive impact, and having them feel like they can still do that and they have hope for the future, even though there's a lot of obstacles and the world is very different um, than it was for a lot of us. That gives me hope, and that's what I'm trying to convey in the film, is that if they still have all this hope, who are we to take that hope away from them? Like, that's not fair. So for me, the hope piece of it is actually really important.
Exactly. Hope is very important for both adults, teenagers, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because with the hope you can do anything and anywhere.
Yeah.
So, what concerns you most about the challenges young people are facing?
I think one of the things that really just scares me is the fact that we live in a world where everybody can know everything that's happening in your life. I mean, anytime that you're out in public, someone can just pull out a phone and, record you and maybe take something out of context. And that to me is scary, because I think what's happening is then it makes people want to be even more aware of what's happening, more perfect, not be themselves because they're scared of what is going to happen if someone sees them do something that maybe they make a mistake, because we're all human and we're going to make mistakes. Um, but you could literally trip outside and someone could be filming you tripping and then put it all over the internet. And then suddenly you're like the laughing stock. You know why? Because you happen to trip. We all trip. um, and so that for me, uh, it makes me sad because I think it's affecting this generation in a way where they are really scared to be themselves because of what people are going to say and think. And, even when you text, you can take a screenshot and then send it to people. So then now people know what your personal conversations are looking like. Um, so it's a lot of this privacy, and it's a lot of just, allowing kids to be kids. I mean, that part, it's tough. And that really kind of freaks me out because it's kind of getting worse.
Exactly, you're very right. And especially in this day and age, where things at the place where the things are getting convenient for the people, but at the same time they're getting worse, as well. There are privacy, problems and a lot of things which people should aware of, and teenagers especially.
Yeah.
So, why do so many young people feel lost despite having more opportunities than ever before?
Because again, it's like that piece, that loneliness where, they say that we're the most connected we've ever been, but everybody's the loneliest that they've ever been because, you look around. Like the other day, I went to the dentist and I was in the waiting room. And I was the youngest person in the waiting room. There were like four older men there, but they were all on their phones and I didn't have my phone. Like, I don't as soon as I go somewhere and sit down, I don't just pull my phone out because, oh my gosh, I'm so bored. I got to look at my phone. Like, I actually try to look at my surroundings and just be in the moment. And they were all on their phone. And I said something. I said, "Wow, look at us. You guys are all on your phone, and you guys are the ones making fun of." I think I made a reference like, "Oh, when you guys make fun of the youth and how they're on their phones all the time, and look at you guys." And I mean, one of the guys was not happy with what I said, but one of the other guys kind of put his phone away, and then we started having a conversation. And so, like, I kind of force people to talk to me. Like, when I go and get my coffee and I'm in line, again, I won't pull my phone out. I will just look at the person next to me and then I'll just start talking to them. And that's the problem, is that everyone's so quick to just look at their phone and no one's looking up and looking around. And that's what's happening, is that you're isolating yourself. Like, a lot of people complain how lonely they are, but they have to look and see, are they also purposely isolating themselves, purposely making it difficult for someone to connect with them, to talk to them? So we have to hold ourselves accountable too for that loneliness. That's why I do my best to not have my phone out when I'm out in public, because I want to have that interaction, because you never know, that person that you talk to could. I've had many interactions where they end up being friends of mine. And so, like, I don't want to miss out on that. And I just think a lot of people are just too busy looking at their phone, and they're missing out on a lot of opportunities to connect with people. And I think
Exactly.
that's a big problem too.
Exactly. That is the biggest problem I could, I would say, for this time period. And we even don't know who is going to be probably helpful for you. Maybe someone who is sitting at the place where you are currently, and being at the present in the present moment. It is also very important. Many
Mhm.
meditations says this quite oftenly, that whatever you are doing at the present moment, you just have to feel it and you have to be active in that moment.
Mhm. Yeah. So I try to do my best, because I can be. I was guilty of always being on my phone, and then I realized, wow, this is not. And then I complain about not having, a social life, or not having a community of people. I had to recognize that I was to blame too. So a lot of times we have to look at ourselves.
Exactly. So, Raquel, personally, when I saw your work on YouTube, on LinkedIn, you know, I was thinking that maybe you also had something in your childhood that inspired you to start doing some work for the young generation, for the youth. You know, so then I just suddenly, thought that I would ask this in the podcast when I was be having a conversation with you. That what was your
Mhm.
childhood be like, and could you just elaborate about that? And was that the main reason behind starting this work for the youth, for the young generation?
Yeah, I think a lot of us don't realize how our childhood really affects us as we get older, our relationships, everything. And as a kid, I had a really good childhood, in the sense that I had, everything I needed. The only thing that I didn't recognize until later that was missing, a lot of it was like feeling seen and heard. Uh, you know, my mom and my dad is a doctor, workaholic, was always at work. So that was tough. But there were moments where I was able to, like, go on rounds with him and everything. And my mom, she was a stay-at-home mom, but she wasn't really present because she was dealing with her own stuff. It wasn't until I got older that I realized that my parents have their traumas too, and they're navigating that, and they're doing their best they can to be parents. So I understand that, but at the same time, I also realized that I wasn't getting the emotional needs that I needed as a kid. And I think that piece, I didn't recognize that until as an adult, how important that is for all children. and how it does shape them, their confidence, their self worth, all of those things. And I am finding that with the younger generations, they're missing a lot of that, and a lot because the adults are also on their phone. Their adults are also kind of consumed in ways that they're not really listening to their kids. There are plenty of parents and adults that are, for sure, but there also are a lot that are not. And so I think that's where the connection lies, is that I didn't feel that way as a kid. I didn't feel heard. Um, I know my parents love me, but I think that piece really affected me. And so that's why, for me, with my own kids, I try to do my best to be the best listener, to be there for them emotionally. Because, yeah, I knew what it was like to have the absence of that.
You're very right, and the listening power is especially one of the strongest ability in the world to have. Like in
Hmm.
this day and age, when people are busy with their mobile phones, with their electronic devices, nobody even listens to their parents, even that, you know, um, properly. So building this ability really affects on you, and it helps you, even in professional sectors. It is required for you to listen carefully. you know
Hmm.
if you don't even listen carefully, how you're going to recognize what your boss is going to say to you when you're in office. So yeah, that is really important. Anyway, what strengths does Gen Z have that older generations after often look?
What was the question again? I'm sorry. What was the beginning?
Yeah, what strengths
Oh, strengths.
does
Okay.
Gen Z have that older generations often overlook?
Um, you know, I do believe that Gen Z, that they are really hungry for like truth and knowledge. I do find that they want to know answers. They want to know, like, I know that a lot of older generations, like, oh, they have AI so they can get all the answers, but they still have access to so much. And I do find that they want to take advantage of all that, access that they have to information. And so because of that, I do feel like there's such intelligence there. And sometimes even when I talk to some of these Gen Zers, I feel dumb, because like they're just so smart already at such a young age. And there's a self awareness there about them also, where I didn't have that type of self awareness until much later in life. So there's this intelligence, this self awareness that I feel like the older generations are overlooking. They're not realizing that they can work with those strengths. I think sometimes older generations are very quick to just look at like the negative instead of the positive, and the strengths. And so I feel like Gen Z, because a lot of employers and a lot of people in the workplace say that they have to like babysit them when they come to work because their parents didn't teach them certain skills that they should know. And I thought, okay, well, I get it. You don't want to babysit these new hires, but at the same time, if you can sit down and maybe ask them, hey, like, you might be struggling with this, like what would be a better way to be able to get you to be motivated or to work harder. And I feel like a lot of people think that that shouldn't be happening in the workplace, but everything's evolved. So I feel like this generation, they do need to have those conversations, and they would appreciate if someone actually said, hey, maybe how can I approach this in a way where we can get you to do what you need to be doing. um, I mean, it's difficult. I'm not going to say that there's like a solution and it's easy, but I feel like, again, if you can sit and actually have the conversation and listen, I think they would surprise you. I think just sometimes, they're probably just as intimidated too. So maybe they don't know how to approach their employer or their boss. Yeah, I mean, there is definitely like, generational gaps, but I feel like if you're willing to communicate and ask questions and listen, I feel like we can get pretty far. That's just my opinion. I don't know.
Exactly, you're very right. And exactly. Because personally, I don't feel any generational gap when I'm talking to my elders, when I'm talking with my grandparents. Like even they get shocked by itself, like how I'm very open to everything. Like I share everything very openly. I don't hesitate, and
Hmm.
I would love to talk to them. So that is obviously um, a, a, a grace of God for this generation, that they are self-aware, they are empathetical, they are ethical.
Hmm.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
So, how can someone build confidence when they constantly compare themselves to others?
Yeah, believe me, that's something that I still struggle with a little bit is my confidence because, it is easy to compare yourself to others, especially as someone who's 50 years old and still, kind of not successful, if you will. um, and I say that because I'm not making any money. I really don't, have an idea of like what my future is going to look like. So I don't feel like I'm successful in business in that way. I'm very honest about it. I know I'm hoping with my film and my podcast that it is going to get to a place where, I have more financial success. But for me, the confidence piece, I think because I know my purpose now and I know the kind of person I am and what I'm trying to give. There's a level of confidence in that, just knowing that I'm trying to do something good and I'm trying to be a kind human being and I'm trying to, walk through the world every day in a way that shows grace. And there's something there that actually like helps my confidence because I know that I'm being true to myself. But it's not easy for everyone to build confidence in that way. Confidence doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm the best and I'm just so great and all of that. No, it's just being confident that you're being here you're meant to be and you're doing at the end of the day, like when I go to bed at night, I'm very proud of who I am and what I'm trying to do, and there's to me that builds confidence, just just knowing I can be me. But yeah, I mean, I can't I wish I had like a step by step guide as to like how to build confidence. I feel like for everyone it can be very different. For me, it's just starting to like own who I am and recognize that my journey is my journey and my timeline is my timeline. And all I can do is just try to do the best that I can. And I'm going to make mistakes and I'm going to make some bad choices along the way. But I'm doing it because I believe that that's the right thing to do. And I'm doing it from the heart. So even if I make a bad choice, it's not like a bad choice in a way where I'm hurting someone. It's a bad choice, like maybe, like I sold my condo 5 years ago. I probably not the smartest thing. I probably should have kept it and rented it out. You know what I mean? Like those type of choices. Like we're all gonna kind of make choices where we're like, maybe that wasn't the best.
Yeah, I got it. And I think that comparing yourself to the older one, to the older version of yourself, is a more
Mm,
helpful and useful thing than comparing yourself to others. People have their own different ways. They have their own different abilities, maybe what where we are expert in, maybe they don't know anything about that thing. And where we are lacking at, maybe they're good at it. So, what I have learned throughout the time period, that comparing yourself to version of yourself is something that helps you grow much more in your life.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because that I mean I've gone through therapy the last couple years. I really feel like I've changed and evolved a lot and for the better. And so yeah, there are moments where I do compare myself to the older version, and I am proud of myself for not being that same version of who I was. So yeah, I agree.
So, you've spent years helping people unlock their potential. When you look at young people today, what do you think they are far more capable of than they realize?
Oh my gosh, I feel like they're capable of anything, everything. Honestly, like I really do believe that the sky's the limit for them in so many ways, but I feel like even adults, struggle with that. I think everybody struggles with that. They limit themselves, right? And I feel like especially this generation, it's no limits with just the amount of information they have and the technology and just everything. I really truly believe that they could really do anything. I really do.
Exactly, you're very right about this. And yeah, exactly. So, any last piece of advice would you like to give to the viewers, listeners?
Piece of advice. I think one of the biggest things like that I'm learning just as we speak is learning to have patience with the process, learning to take everything day by day. I'm learning to just have moments where I can just sit in peace and quiet and just really like tune into my inner voice. I think it's really kind of I think so many of us, especially, some of the younger generation, because there's so much noise and there's so much social media and everybody's an expert and everyone's telling you how to live your life and everyone knows the best diet and the best exercise routine and the best this and the best and all this stuff. But I think at the end of the day, you have to recognize like what's best for you and who you are and what works for you and what doesn't, and trust yourself in that. I think that's more important right now, just with all the noise, is to really quiet it in a way where you can really listen to yourself, and you're gonna know if you can follow your gut and your intuition and your heart. I think you're gonna understand, what it is that you're meant to be doing and who you are and all of that.
You're very right about that, and listening to yourself is much more important, because sometimes we feel we are not being heard, we are not being seen. If we could speak to ourselves, if we could listen to ourselves, maybe that could do a little bit, to improve that missing gap, you know,
Yeah.
because we have a lot of expectations that if we have that friend, he maybe he listens to us, you know, we just want people to understand our feelings, to understand what we are trying to say, but people are busy in their works, people are busy with their lives, so they don't really, get into that thing which we want them to get into that. Um, Honestly, Raquel, it was really great speaking to you, and today I had to reschedule because of something was came up, and I was really waiting for this podcast since a lot of days.
Oh,
And,
you're so sweet.
yeah, exactly, because you are doing such a great work. People just, say with their words that we empower Gen Z, we work for Gen Z, like really. But I couldn't just see their work practically, but the person who truly cares about the young generation for the youth is Raquel Borras,
Oh, thank you.
honestly. And so yeah, so guys, it was a conversation which was made for young generation, for Gen Zs, to empower them, to bring a message for them. And a lot of Gen Zs are struggling with their careers, with a lot of things.
Yeah.
And if you want to know anything about, you know, the struggles you're facing, you can personally contact Raquel Borras. She is really helpful. She is very kind. She will help you. So inshallah, meet you soon with another amazing podcast with another amazing guest. Till then, stay peace and take care of yourself. Goodbye.